conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nah, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening, it's me, Patrick Christys. I've got an absolute rip-roar of a show for you tonight, filling in for the wonderful Jacob Rees-Mogg on State of the Nation. Lucy Letby, the serial killer nurse who refused to attend her own court sentencing like a coward, will spend the rest of her life in prison. Letby is now known as the most prolific child serial killer in modern British history. She avoided the statements made by her victims' parents, and today I launched a campaign to make it mandatory for all violent criminals and killers to hear victim impact statements. I'll be telling you a bit more about that a little bit later on. gbnews.com/justice. Let's make the change. But this weekend, Sadiq Khan faced calls to resign after it emerged that his website featured a captioned image stating that a white family aren't real Londoners. Absolutely shocking, isn't it? What must he think of ordinary, normal white people? If the shoe were on the other foot, we'd be seeing real action taken, won't we? I will be debating this a little bit later on. Is Sadiq Khan racist? Now, it's emerged that Home Office staff are asked not to be sceptical about asylum applications, even if the claimants are lying to them. It's absolutely astonishing. I mean, we're even surprised that the asylum seeker who murdered a young boy over an e-scooter lied about being a minor and got away with it, or that the asylum backlog is nearly hitting 200,000 people. It is absolutely unbelievable, isn't it? And, well, I simply can't keep up today with Sadiq, because today is not his day. The scientists who report to have found that ULEZ, which, by the way, is not just a London issue, it is coming to a town and a city near you, drastically reduces air pollution. Well, they agreed to claim it in a statement after reports that Sadiq Khan's own office were trying to silence scientists that claim to have proved otherwise. He says that he's following the science, but not even the science is following his claims, apparently. Look, absolutely loads on the agenda tonight. We're going to get stuck right into all of it. State of the Nation starts now. So many top topics on the agenda, and I will be joined throughout by a high-spirited panel this evening. Historian and broadcaster David Starkey and GB News' political senior commentator, it is Nigel Nelson. Now, remember, I want to hear from you. That email remains the same. It's mailmog@gbnews.com. This show is all about you, especially considering I am asking you to help sign my petition, which is gbnews.com/justice. Let's make sure that serial killers and violent offenders have to attend court for their sentencing and the victim impact statements. That needs to happen. But right now, it's the news of the day with Tatiana.
Patrick, thank you very much and good evening. This is the latest from the GB newsroom. The parents of two triplet boys murdered by Lucy Letby on successive days have said the nurse has destroyed their lives. The judge ordered that she be sent a transcript of his sentencing remarks and copies of the statements read aloud by families of her victims. It comes after the most prolific child serial killer in modern British history was given a whole life term but refused to appear in court. The 33-year-old was found guilty of murdering 7 babies and attempting to murder 6 more at the Countess of Chester Hospital between 2015 and 2016. The mother of 9-year-old Olivia Pratt-Corbell, who was fatally shot inside her home in August last year, says her heart goes out to the families of Lucy Letby's victims after she didn't appear in court for the sentencing.
The impact statement was really hard. It didn't take minutes. It was days, over a matter of weeks. That first port of call of rehabilitation should be in that courtroom and standing there listening to the judge and listening to the family's impact statements.
In other news, 800 migrants crossed the English Channel today. That's a new one-day record for the year. It comes as the Border Force begins a week of so-called red days. The force's system's predicting high numbers of arrivals with close to ideal conditions forecast. GB News can reveal that 16 small boats made it to UK waters. Now, Donald Trump has confirmed that he won't take part in the upcoming Republican presidential debate with his rivals in the race for the White House. The first debate comes as the same week that Mr. Trump's expected to surrender in Georgia to face charges of trying to overturn the result of the 2020 election in the state. Trump's facing dozens of criminal charges and will go on trial several times in the overcoming months, even as he campaigns to become president again in the 2024 election. Well, his son Eric Trump spoke to Nigel Farage a short while ago, saying the indictments against his father won't stop him.
Well, he's going to do what he does best, and he's going to multitask and, do what he had to do every single day during the 4 years of his presidency, Nigel. I mean, you're no stranger to this. They've done the same thing to you on the other side of the pond, and believe me, you only go after your enemies. You know that better than anyone. If my father wasn't leading by 50 and 60 points the Republican Party, they wouldn't be going after him. These trials, the charges, they're nonsense.
This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Patrick.
Sadistic evil monsters should not be given the option of whether or not they attend court to hear the victim's impact statements or their sentence. As far as I'm concerned, there's a case to say that they even lose their human rights when someone like Lucy Letby murders 7 newborn babies and attempts to murder goodness knows how many more. They should be dragged to the dock, kicking and screaming, if necessary. For people worried about how it looks, just think about how it looks now. It looks like child murderers like Thomas Chapman can laugh at British justice and sneer at the families of the victims by refusing to hear the consequences of his actions when he gunned down Olivia Pratt-Corbell. You could restrain them, put them in a soundproof see-through booth in court so that they can't cause a disturbance. That's why I have launched a petition. The QR code has just appeared on your screens right now, and the website is gbnews.com/justice. And what we want to do is make killers face real justice. We need to do that. In recent months, Lucy Letby, Thomas Chapman, Kodjay Solomange, Jordan McSweeney have all given a slap in the face to their victims' families by refusing to come to the dock after being found guilty. It's cowardice and their last final warped act of power, and we must stop it. For anyone in any doubt as to how important it is for victim impact statements to be read directly to the evil sadists who commit these crimes, I asked Ellie Edwards' dad about this directly. Now, Ellie was shot dead in a busy pub on the early hours of Christmas Day by Connor Chapman, who was sentenced to a minimum of 48 years. Now, he did actually turn up to hear the sentencing, but I spoke to Ellie's dad, who told me how important that was.
It's very important because it gives you it's the only opportunity you have, really, to confront the killer face to face, and it allows you to give them a bit of insight into what the effects are of what they've done to you or, you know, their family, and you don't get a chance to do that. And if they don't turn up on the day of sentencing, it makes it a bit of a mockery.
Absolutely. Of course it does. He also backs my petition to impose a law that makes killers and other violent offenders go to court to hear the statements and their sentence, and he is sick of waiting for politicians to act.
I think it's something that needs to happen very, very soon and very, very quickly, and these politicians have that power to make that happen. And if support's needed from myself, then I'm more than happy to go and bang on them doors and make sure that they do change the law sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Well, look, let's make our voices heard. You can sign the petition right now, gbnews.com/justice. I launched this petition at 3 p.m. today. We've already had 15,000 people sign it as of this very moment. So thank you, everybody. But that shows the strength of public feeling behind this. You can use the QR code that's on your screens right now. Hold your phone over it, see what happens, follow the steps. And look, let's make killers face real justice. But, of course, I want to know your thoughts. Don't forget to let me know what you think. mailmog@gbnews.com. Now, joining me now to discuss this is top barrister Philip Taylor. Philip, thank you very, very much. I understand that there are practical issues with this, OK? I do understand that. However, I think we need to overcome those. Where are you, as a barrister, on killers being dragged to the dock to hear the victim impact statements?
Well, I understand the concerns of the victims. I also believe that we have to remember that a court of law is open justice. It's the judge in open court explaining why he's sentencing a person. I have a few reservations about how this petition may actually apply in practice, in other words, the process. But I believe that, in fact, we have to make these people answer for what they've done in public, and that's the whole purpose of the criminal jurisdiction.
A couple of the pitfalls for me on this would be, so the law at the moment, they are allowed to be instructed to come to court, but it relies on the prison officers doing that and being told that they have to do that. And prison officers, as it currently stands, which I appreciate, are afraid of crossing that threshold of reasonable force, i.e. they don't want to end up the wrong side of a jury themselves at some point. So they need to be empowered to know that they can use whatever action it takes to get people there, don't they?
They do, and I think that the thing that most members of the public have got a great deal of surprise about is the fact that the powers of a judge, when it comes to the actual sentencing part of the trial, are very limited. Now, clearly, what I think will have to happen is perhaps an amendment to one of the current bills going before Parliament before the end of this current Parliament, and try to bring something in that gives the judge a specific power to order a defendant to come to court. Then you've got the problem, because someone has got to drag that person into court if they don't want to do so. But I would add one important point here, and that is that in the Letby case, she tried to leave the dock, so she was stopped. And, of course, the purpose behind having dock officers is to make sure that the behaviour of the defendant is kept in check at all times.
And would you be against things like straitjackets, strapping them to a chair, muzzling them, just getting them there?
Yes, I would.
Why?
I think that's going too far. I remember a case in Matlock, I think it was, or one of these American programmes, where the defendant, because he kept talking, was actually gagged and had a plaster put over his mouth. That was done for comedic effect. But in reality, I don't think you can do that, because if you do that, you're getting down to their level. And what the public want and what the victims want is they want to see that final stage of the person being dealt with so that they can have closure and understand that.
One of the arguments against saying, obviously, well, we'll just add years to your sentence, is if in the case of Lucy Letby and a couple of others, you're going to get a whole life tariff anyway, then that matters little. So what I suspect that we maybe could do to get people into the dock on that final day is say, look, you're probably going to get a whole life tariff. It's certainly on the table. But you have a choice now. You can spend that whole life without any phone access, without any visitation, without any television in your cell, without any of the privileges normally afforded to a cooperative prisoner. If you don't attend, that's what we'll take off you.
Well, there is that perhaps deterrent, but I think at the end of it all, you've got to bear in mind exactly where we stand. For instance, Robert Buckland made a sensible suggestion, and that was to have a feed into the cell. Because I think more important than the sentence itself are the victim impact statements, which are relatively new, in fact, for someone of my vintage, because in the past that did not happen. But now it does. I think that the victims have got to feel that they've seen justice actually in action.
I think they need to know. That's really why I'm doing it. I think maybe we could get caught up with this romantic notion of seeing a crushing look of disappointment on a perpetrator's face as the judge hands down a full life tariff. All too often, you're not going to get that, because especially when you're dealing with psychopaths, OK? It's not going to happen. It's more for me around the victims' families being able to feel as though justice has been served, being able to feel as though for that one time in their lives, they will be able to look at, if they want to, be able to look at the person who's committed the most heinous crime to one of their loved ones and to know that that person has heard how they feel. And a way of doing that would be to pump it into their cells, wouldn't it, via audio and video link?
Yes, you could certainly do that. I mean, one of the problems you've got, which I've seen in court and many people have, is the sneering that goes on. As you've indicated, this is the last occasion where they can really get at the people who they really hate. And, of course, their hatred is completely psychotic most of the time. The reality, though, is that how do we do this in a civilised society? And I suggest that, obviously, we should have a power with the judge. The judge can, of course, clear a court if he feels that something terrible is going to happen. But he should have the person he's sentencing in front of him, taking the punishment that society says should be given to them.
I just wonder if there is that way around it, of having to get around any sneering, to get around anything along those lines or any kind of ill behaviour, would be to have a soundproof booth, so you don't have to muzzle them, so you don't have the optics of what that would look like. And you know that they can hear what you're saying, so it could be mirrored glass, for example. So the person who's inside that booth, the killer, the attempted murderer, the rapist, whatever, can see out. No one can really necessarily see in. They can't hear what he's saying, but you absolutely know that that monster is in there and he has to listen to you, or she has to listen to you. Maybe that is something that has to be done.
I think it will have to be. I think it actually will be for Parliament to decide. Remember, we do have the separation of powers between the role of the judiciary and the role of Parliament. But I think this is something I know the Prime Minister has specifically talked about.
This is one of the things, Philip, that we're trying to push for, because Dominic Raab spoke about it, and then obviously he was done for, wasn't he? Alex Chalk wants to do it. Rishi Sunak says he wants to do it. Keir Starmer says he wants to do it. But like in the case of Ellie Edwards' father there, actual real-life victims are sick of politicians talking about it, and I'm hoping that the petition, which anyone can sign now, which is gbnews.com/justice, the link is on the bottom of your screen there. We'll be putting a QR code again on your screen a little bit later on, so you can just hold your phone over it and it does the rest. We're hoping that that can give it the extra kick up the backside to just get this thing done, really, because I would hope this should be an easy win. There's your QR code there. Go and do it. If you think that at the moment it is morally unconscionable that someone who's committed the most heinous crimes, like killing a litany of babies, for example, can have the option of sitting in a cell and burying their head in the sand whilst victim impact statements are read out. If you think that's wrong, as I do, then get that petition signed and hopefully we can get some change. But, Philip, thank you very, very much. Absolute pleasure to... You want to do something quickly, do you?
Just say thank you, Patrick, for the petition. The only thing I would say is that let's get it done.
Let's get it done.
Let's stop wasting time and do something for the people.
Look, we don't hang around here. I certainly don't hang around. Massively appreciated. Really great to have you on the show. You take care. All right, of course. The wonderful Philip Taylor, KC there. Look, don't forget to let me know what you think. mailmark@gbnews.com. Now, Sadiq Khan, the Monday Blues, they're hitting you hard, aren't they? The Mayor of London's website featured an image of a white family captioned, "This does not represent real Londoners." That'll be a shock to most Londoners, won't it? Do you think that this is a little bit racist? Let me know. Plus, the Home Office staff aren't even allowed to cross their arms during a video interview with asylum claimants over concerns that it could be threatening body language. Are we becoming soft touch Britain?
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us. From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. You're with me, Patrick Christys. Let's try and do Jacob proud, shall we, in State of the Nation. You've been getting in touch with your thoughts in your droves, and thank you very, very much, everybody. Stuart says, I agree. This is about our campaign, my campaign, really, my petition, to try to get killers and other violent offenders to face real justice. He says, I agree. Just handcuff them and bring them up to a soundproof box with speakers inside for sentencing. The trial is done. They don't need to be heard, but they must be there for sentencing and for victims and their families' closure. Yeah, I agree. Patrick says, great name, Patrick. You are wrong. Hate you, Patrick. You are wrong to initiate this petition. If the person found guilty refuses to come up to the dock, you would have the police drag officers drag them kicking and screaming. Yes, I would, Patrick, I would. The judge would have no option but to either clear the cause or have the accused removed. Not in the soundproof booth. It would be chaos and would play into the hands of the accused. Lauren says it's so awful that killers have the rights to ignore their fate. After taking a life, you have left your basic human rights behind. Look, I'm inclined to agree, but I know a litany of human rights lawyers who would disagree with you. But what does being a Londoner really mean to you? Maybe being London born and bred. What about being British, though, as well? Because when you think of Britain, a lot of the time, people think of London. It'll be one of the first things people think about, won't it? Well, Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, can't tell you what a real Londoner is, but he can tell you what one doesn't look like. So according to the Mayor of London's website, a white family does not represent real Londoners. The website's guide opened with the words, "A city for all Londoners." Well, apparently not. A spokesman for Sadiq said, they've commented, saying that the caption was added by a staff member, quote, "in error," and it doesn't reflect the view of the Mayor of the Greater London Authority. Do you believe that? His mayoral rivals for next year's election have called for Sadiq to apologise, but after his utter mess of ULEZ and now his office's supposed exclusion of white families, does his third term as mayor seem unlikely? I think depressingly not, actually. But with rising crime rates and cost of living crisis, shouldn't Sadiq Khan be focusing on other things besides dividing the nation even more? To discuss this, I've got historian and broadcaster David Starkey. I've also got GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. David, I'll bring you in. I'm sorry, but this sounds a bit racist to me.
I think it's absolutely racist. And I think what we need to understand is that anti-racism is racist. That the way in which Black Lives Matter presents itself is directly hostile to whites. Can I quote my former colleague at Cambridge, the college on the other side of the road, Professor Gopal? She says, white lives don't matter as white lives. We've introduced another concept. We've introduced the hereditary guilt of whites.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
In other words, if you are white, you have this thing called white privilege. You carry... this is what Hitler did to the Jews. You introduce a concept of hereditary racial guilt. And in fact, as far as I can see, the sort of anti-racism that's purveyed by Sadiq Khan is simply apartheid in reverse. It's the world of Animal Farm, 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, white bad, black good.
OK, Nigel, I'll bring you in on this now. Would it be unfair to say all of that about Sadiq Khan? This could have just been an administrative error by, someone on work experience, and actually it doesn't reflect his views.
Absolutely right. I mean, that's the situation here. Sadiq Khan didn't put that caption up, that it was added by somebody else. Now, we don't know whether the wording was simply clumsy, whether it was deliberately racist. I mean, it might have been. But, I mean, quite clearly that a white family, even one in this picture that looks as if they've just walked out of a holiday brochure.
Yeah.
They do...
You mean unlike the hell of Sadiq Khan's London?
They do represent real Londoners. But the other point is, and it may be this is what was trying to be added to it, as I say, that could be just clumsiness. The other point is, it doesn't make them representative of London as it is at the moment. London's a melting pot. There are a load of...
Yeah, but how do you articulate...
Sorry, Nigel, you clearly haven't looked at the whole pamphlet. It's such a good idea to look at the whole of a document before you comment on part of it. Remember the last image there that shows a smiling, beaming Sadiq Khan, completely representative, and there is not a single white face.
I noticed that.
There is not a... I'm sorry. Now,
OK, there should have been.
No, but can we just follow this through? You can't make the excuse that Khan didn't know what was going on. He was there. He assembles that group round him, and it actually reflects the basic tenor of his campaign.
No, and you're absolutely right. There should have been a white face. White face.
50% of the population of London is white.
Well, I don't think you have to do that. I think that the idea
but why, Nigel, why not? We normally, if you actually look...
Well, if we're being representative here, we should have a black face.
No, we shouldn't, because there are 5% of the population is black. So we would actually have to have an awful lot of white people before we needed a black one, if you're going to do it arithmetically. I mean, perhaps... I wasn't
talking about doing it arithmetically.
Well, you are talking...
Let Nigel continue on this then. So you do think that he should have had more white faces? Is that not symptomatic of maybe a wider societal thing? So not just Sadiq Khan, not just London. You see it in a lot of university advertisements these days, advertisements in general, where it doesn't... You would be forgiven if you landed from Mars or another country. I mean, you would have thought that England was a minority white country based off that.
Yeah, no, I think that in that particular picture that David's talking about, that absolutely right. I think there was a communications issue. Some
there seemed to be
some white people should have been in that picture, or at least one white person. What we're talking about, though, is whether or not that the picture of the white family who apparently aren't real Londoners is racist. And I'm arguing that it feels to me like clumsiness trying to actually get a branding which was saying, actually, we've got to get more ethnic minorities into
Now, that's interesting, because that would imply to me the feel to need to do that. Why would one feel the need to show, look how diverse and wonderful London is? Why?
Because it is.
It is, but it just is. It just self-evidently is. Just anyone who's ever been here, anyone who ever knows it is.
We're dealing with propaganda. Let's face it. We're not dealing with a serious representation of the city. We're dealing with political propaganda. Diversity, inclusion and equity is a highly specific programme which is directly directed against whites and white culture. That is its fundamental... It's genuine... So you are not... I'm sorry, you are not familiar with the actual academic basis of this, Nigel.
I am giving you
that's possibly true.
I'm giving you the sober truth. Just quickly, because a lot of people go, well, what is white culture? What is it? So go on, what is it?
Everything that matters in the world.
Right.
The whole of modernity is, I'm afraid, whether you like it or dislike it, is invented in Western Europe, and with the great bulk of it actually in the British Isles. We simply, every form of modern medicine, every form of modern science, every form of modern architecture, all of it, the medium that we're in now.
What do you make of the Arab world leading the way in mental health back in medieval times?
Oh, I'm sorry, do you know what? It was...
Where arithmetic came from, which was not from the...
indeed.
The white
had you noticed, A, it was a very long time ago. B...
You're talking historically, aren't you?
I am talking about the world of now, as a historian. I'm talking about where the world of now comes from. And the world of now is this astonishing achievement of the last 500 years, beginning in Italy and shifting very sharply to these strange little northwestern...
Well, now, let me ask you both the same question quickly, because we're a bit pressed for time. Would Sadiq Khan lose votes if he had more white people in his pamphlets?
No.
You don't think he would?
No.
So there's no point in not doing that, then?
No, there's no point in not doing it. He wouldn't lose votes.
Do you think he would lose votes?
I think it would affect the kind of... As I said, this is a matter of image, and the nature of the diverse campaign is one, I'm afraid, that needs as few white people around as possible.
So, Nigel, that idea of him not needing to do it because otherwise he wouldn't lose votes implies to me that it is true when people say that politics and arguably society as a whole has been captured by a small cabal of ultra-woke people who feel the need to press their ideology on the rest of us.
Yeah, I don't know how that picture came about. I do think it was a mistake because they didn't have a white face in it. And as I say, whether it's actually somebody in the communications department being woke, as you say, or whatever it is, but it was an error.
OK, I'm not sure how long we got left on this, but I would quite like one more quick one with David, because for me, David, this ties in with actually a much bigger picture. We've had the debanking scandal, OK, where people with a certain political view can get debanked. We're having it with advertisers. Good grief, are we? I mean, you know, where, again, a group of advertising people sign up to a particular charter that says that anything remotely right-wing is absolute filth and therefore they have to ban the advertisers on it. You have people, of course, in adverts as well now.
Well, I think...
Has society been captured by a small group of people who want to push an anti-white agenda in some way?
I think anti-white is only an aspect of it. Anti-capitalism, anti-West, anti-history, all of those things. And I'm afraid it really is true. It's tiny group that, unfortunately, do you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to stop us. They're trying to stop genuine debate. They're trying to say polite people only say this tiny little range of things, which is why...
Well, and they make you out... They do make you out to be an extremist for having, at times, genuinely not very extreme views. I mean, the amount of pearl clutching that goes on whenever anyone just says that they voted for Brexit, and that even if their reason for voting for Brexit was because they bought a lot of the economic arguments that are being made. I mean, the idea that that makes you some kind of frothing right-winger is absolutely ridiculous. But, right, we're definitely going to have more from you two. That was great. So, coming up, Home Office staff are being told not to be sceptical of asylum claims. Yeah, you heard that right. OK, they've been told not to be sceptical of somebody who has just paid human traffickers to come across the channel, claiming to be fear of water, and also saying that they're from a war-torn country, despite the fact that their family are already here, and they are here for economic reasons. Don't you dare be sceptical of that Home Office staff. We'll be debating this next. Plus, ever heard of ULEZ? Yeah, of course. Well, apparently, the climate science behind ULEZ might be a lie. Stay tuned.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixture of sun and showers for many tomorrow, a little cooler generally too, but in the south it will again be very warm in the sunshine thanks to this area of high pressure, but it's being pushed away by low pressure. This is becoming the dominant feature. It's making for a very wet evening across western Scotland, quite blustery as well. That rain will trickle southwards. A few showers this evening for Wales and northern England, one or two heavy ones, but they tend to fade, and then much of the south will have a dry night with clear spells, maybe some mist and fog patches. Pretty much everywhere it's going to be a mild night and a mild start to Tuesday, but quite windy across the north early on with cloud and outbreaks of rain across northern England, North Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. The winds will steadily ease and the rain will break up to leave just a few showers really from late morning onwards. Not many of those showers though from the Midlands southwards, so most here staying dry and with the sunny spells coming through across southern England. Really quite warm again, 26, maybe 27 Celsius. Elsewhere temperatures closer to the low 20s and feeling fresher with that breeze. Although that wind will continue to ease, light winds again on Wednesday, so again maybe some mist and fog early on. A few more showers on Wednesday in the far northwest, the threat of one or two for West Wales and southwest England, but again many places will be dry on Wednesday with some sunny spells, feeling a bit warmer across northern England, and again in the south we could see 27 degrees.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views, and often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is two new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I remain Patrick Christys, and you've all been getting in touch with your thoughts in relation to our campaign about killers being dragged to court in order to hear their sentencing and the victim impact statement. Granville says, attention should be on the NHS management who enabled this travesty. These people should face manslaughter charges for their part, otherwise all that will happen is their usual mantra of lessons will be learnt. Look, you're absolutely spot on. And in fact, tomorrow on my 3 till 6 show, I'm going to be revealing all of the different parts of the UK where we've had baby death scandals, and we'll be working through them, and every single time they said lessons have been learnt, and shock horror, lessons have not been learnt. Frank says, Sadiq Khan needs to be removed from Mayor of London immediately. He is inciting racist hatred. It's a total disgrace to the office. Sadiq Khan obviously denies that he's inciting racial hatred. And that's all I need to say about that. Now, government ministers are under pressure to scrap the soft Home Office rules which order staff to not be sceptical about asylum seekers' claims. Going to repeat that for you. To not be sceptical about asylum seekers' claims. So don't really question it. The guidance currently states that migrants are not obliged to answer questions that they find upsetting, and they are allowed to be assessed via video call rather than a face-to-face grilling. They do not have to prove their sexual orientation if they claim they are fleeing persecution on the grounds of being LGBTQ plus whatever else. The backlog of claims is currently at 170,000. Well, it's much higher than that because we've had another record day in the channel today, by the way, with an extra 700 caseworkers being recruited to help clear this. We had more than 700 people arrive today, so interesting to analyse that. But assessors have been told that a lie by a claimant is not a reason to boot out their application. So just because somebody's lied to you doesn't mean that you don't have to be sceptical about them going forward. Ladies and gentlemen, herein lies the problem with our system. We're too soft on asylum. I'm joined now by Conservative MP and, crucially for this discussion, Home Affairs Select Committee member Marco Longhi and human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Both of you, thank you very much. Marco, I will start with you. Do we really have a system at the moment where asylum checkers are told not even to cross their arms in case that's considered threatening language? We don't have to check the sexual orientation of someone who's saying they need asylum here because they're gay. What's going on?
Well, it's utterly insane if any of this is true, and I will be asking questions about it, clearly, when Parliament returns, that, you know, this cannot continue. This feels almost like death by 1,000 cuts, and for me, it raises questions of governance. I mean, who is in charge here? Is it civil servants who write this guidance, which is in complete contravention with the stated policy and intention of what the government wants to achieve, what ministers want, or are they just literally deciding to rule themselves and taking it upon themselves as to what they believe is right and wrong? It's utterly nuts. It needs to stop. The PM needs to understand that when he said he will do what it takes to stop this, this is what he also needs to sort out.
All right. I'll come back to you, Shoaib. Thank you very much, human rights lawyer. Is it against somebody's human rights for me to fold my arms while I'm deciding whether or not they can come and live in our country?
Hi. I mean, I think the main problem is, most of what was just said, I think, agree with that. But I think that's true for most Tory policy. It's nuts, it's insane. They have no idea. They're just completely clueless about what they're doing. The only thing that has grown under the Tory government has been backlogs. And so they're trying to cut down on those now that we're approaching an election. And that's what this is. We saw just a few weeks ago, reports about the Tories, especially in the Home Office, trying to cook the books. So asylum applications suddenly being withdrawn. when people aren't actually withdrawing them. They're just doing anything to reduce the numbers. We've got the highest backlog we've ever seen. And now that's what they see, after 13 years of being in power, they just want to be granting some people asylum so they have something to show. And by the time the election comes, we at least don't have a record high backlog. And that's exactly what's happening now. And basically, at times when they want to be strict, even the most desperate, vulnerable, helpless people are refused. And now when they just want to be seen to be reducing the backlog, they're just encouraging their caseworkers to grant asylum. And it's just unfair, it's inhumane, it's just completely incompetent. But that's all there is here.
Marco, I very rarely say this, but I am inclined to agree a bit there with what Shoaib has said, because the cynic in me would say that the Tory party is now so desperate to reduce the backlog that it might be willing to just wave people through.
It isn't just about reducing the backlog here, Patrick. It's stopping them from coming in the first place. And it's thanks to people like Mr. Khan there, who is acting against the government all the time, wanting to champion people's rights, a right not to have an interview with your arms crossed. My goodness me, a right to be able to tell a lie. This is what he's saying is okay in our system? There's a difference. There's a difference between the civil service implementing what ministers want and a civil service that simply does as it pleases. This is what needs to change. It's clear for all to see, and this is what I'll be working on.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Marco's hit back there, Shoaib. He says that you support the rights of people to gratuitously lie and basically game our asylum system. Is that true?
Okay, so two things really quickly. Firstly, like has just been admitted, if that's how helpless our ministers are, maybe they should just step aside, to be honest. If the whole point is there's no ministerial oversight, we have caseworkers following guidance not approved by ministers. It's just a civil service.
Well, hang on a minute. Just answer. Come on.
The minister by surprise.
Come on. Answer the question.
Quite incompetent.
Answer the question. Do you support? Answer the question, Shoaib? Go on. Do you support people's right to lie?
Secondly, in terms of lying, that's exactly as we have in criminal courts. Just because someone has found to be lying doesn't mean they committed the crime. If you ask someone, where were you last night? In case he lies to the police, it doesn't mean he committed the murder. And that's exactly what it is. Just because someone is telling inconsequential lies or being found to be lying, it doesn't mean that their claim is false. And that's exactly the point here. People lie.
I'm not sure it is really the point here, Shoaib.
Maybe they want to hide other facts, and that's exactly the point. So,
Marco, go on, Marco.
Telling some lie.
I'm sorry, you just
asylum claim is fake.
All right, Shoaib. Go on, Marco.
My goodness, you've just literally heard someone first try to answer and only make political points. So that tells you about something about what they think. Then when you press them to actually answer the question, they basically try to find a way that it's okay to lie. So when these illegal immigrants arrive, they are basically entitled to say anything they want. Anything goes, just let them all in. That's the Labour solution, and that's clearly a Labour Party human rights lawyer that you have just brought on.
I've got to give the very final and hopefully show a relatively brief word. But yeah, just come back on it. Because to be honest with you, what I heard there was that you are trying to, with your lawyer hat on, make a case for why people should repeatedly lie to our asylum claimants and then still be believed.
Well, the sort of guidance I gave, that's exactly the guidance that judges give juries day in, day out. Just because someone gets caught telling a lie doesn't mean they're guilty, doesn't mean you convict. So I don't think that's anything new to law. That's exactly just a legal principle we have. And just as it applies to anyone else in a UK court, it should apply to immigrants as well.
OK. Well, both of you, thank you. Could have gone on with that, but it's a matter of time, I'm afraid. But thank you very, very much. As Conservative MP, Home Affairs Select Committee member Marco Longhi and human rights lawyer Shoaib Khan. Wow, strong stuff. Right, OK, so I've still got a little bit coming your way. If you pay a £12.50 charge every time your car leaves your driveway, get a load of this. You could be paying for a lie. Stay tuned.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Yes, OK, all right. Well, I'm just going to start with a couple of your mail mogs. Thank you very much to everybody who's been getting in touch. I am going to read this one out from Martin, who says, I agree people like Lucy Letby should be dragged to the dock to face and hear the victims who they've hurt. Look, I've got a petition on the go now. It's gbnews.com/justice, and we want a change in the law to make sure that murderers and violent offenders are dragged to the dock so that they have to hear the victim impact statements and their sentence being served to them by a judge. But I've got my panel here with me now. David Starkey, historian and broadcaster, and GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. The story that I want to do is this. It's about a war on motorists, and a war on motorists that potentially is being blamed on a lie. I'm going to read out some facts for you now. ULEZ, OK? I will say this till I'm blue in the face. It might seem like a London issue now. I think a bit of Birmingham has it. This will come to a town or a city near you if it doesn't go checked immediately. Sadiq Khan's office tried to discredit and silence scientists who found that his ultra-low emission zone policy had little impact on pollution. That's why we're doing it, isn't it? That's why we would consent, against our will, to pay to drive. The emails between Shirley Rodriguez, who is Khan's Deputy for Environment and Energy, and Professor Frank Kelly, who is a Director for Imperial College London's Environmental Research Group, have been exposed, during which Rodriguez says that she was really disappointed at the findings of this report, which questioned the effectiveness of ULEZ. They were basically, in a nutshell, told to change it. Of course, they were paid £800,000 by Mr Khan's office since 2021, and Professor Kelly's colleagues said that they stood by their research 100%, but it is understood that the fallout had a chilling effect, leaving them unwilling to publish further data. Basically, was it the old classic of a politician going to a group and saying, look, we need to find something here, can you find it for us? And them saying, well, we can't really, but we'll just about find it for you. And them saying, that's not good enough. And them saying, well, that's what you're getting. And now the public has to pay. David Starkey, do you feel as though the public is being lied to a bit about the climate effects of ULEZ?
Lie is a bit too strong a word. Just a bit too, for me, being moderate, it's a bit too strong a word. What we're seeing here is something that we're seeing in area after area after area. It is the politicisation of academic research. And what's very striking, and you haven't quite told the full story, it's a really interesting one. The Department of Imperial, which is a deeply respectable institution, which found that, in fact, it makes the ULEZ has made 3% difference to nitrous oxide and negligible to particulates. Why? And what was the department? This was the real department, the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering. In other words, the real scientists. I'm afraid that what Kelly heads is a propaganda department. And it is a disaster when you mix up science and propaganda.
But that's the kind of... So David's able to look at these figures and analyse them and look at it objectively like that. But the vast majority of the public just have to succumb and bend over and take it from the likes of Sadiq Khan when it comes to ULEZ.
Yeah, the whole point about this is that, I mean, the story's a bit more complex than it's been outlined. So what you had here was two reports. One came from the environmental side of Imperial, and one came from the engineering side.
No, it's environmental engineering. In other words, sorry, it's the difference is between the research scientists, who are the ones who said it had no effect, but the propaganda scientists who
I understand that. Let's let Nigel talk.
So what in fact happened is it's an argument between scientists about the collection of data and what the data shows.
No, it's not.
So that's the background to the whole thing.
No.
I don't know exactly where the scientists got to. When it came down to what Sadiq Khan is actually doing, I'm in favour of the principle of ULEZ, against the way he is bringing it into Greater London.
OK, all right. Now, David, when we looked at certain things that happened during the pandemic and the public were told to take things as facts, and it turned out later on that those facts
are not
questionable, I am concerned that there may be similar issues when it comes to things like ULEZ and other environmental things. Not all of them at all, but sometimes. You mentioned the politicisation of quotes-unquote fact or research. That is a problem for people because it is going to cost people money, and it's part of a wider anti-traffic agenda. We've got local councils, traffic cameras making £1 million a year in certain areas, potholes left, right and centre, they're not being fixed. I'm convinced that's partly to discourage people from driving. There's an anti-car agenda here.
There is, but I think there's something actually much, much deeper. It is how we make policy. This terrible phrase, which I'm afraid has taken in Nigel, just following the science. There's no such thing. These are Kelly is a single-issue fanatic. He is not a serious... I'm sorry, he's not a serious scientist. And we need to understand this, and we're seeing it repeatedly. And we're also seeing something else, which is even more fundamental. The job of the scientist is not to make policy. Churchill, just quickly, Churchill has this wonderful phrase, or maybe it's Teddy Roosevelt, that you want scientists on tap, but not on top. We saw from COVID the catastrophe of having fanatical scientists making policy.
That's it, I'm afraid. Nigel, I'm very sorry. You've been squeezed out slightly here, I'm afraid, but I hope you did feel heard at some point during that discussion. Now, well, that's basically it from us. Up next is Professor Daniel Watson. Dan, what's coming up?
Good evening, Patrick. Great show. We're continuing lots of your themes of the day, including Dr. Liam Fox in the House on why he believes it's absolutely essential that the Conservative government put new policies in place forcing criminals like Letby to be in the dock when sentences are passing down, plus all the regulars, Neil Oliver, Calvin McKenzie, Lady Colin Campbell and Phil Dampier.
Lovely stuff. Dan, it's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. Thank you very much. You've heard that he's got Liam Fox on there. All the politicians say they're backing my petition. gbnews.com/justice. Just get it done.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. A mixture of sun and showers for many tomorrow, a little cooler generally too, but in the south it will again be very warm in the sunshine thanks to this area of high pressure, but it's being pushed away by low pressure. This is becoming the dominant feature. It's making for a very wet evening across western Scotland, quite blustery as well. That rain will trickle southwards. A few showers this evening for Wales and northern England, one or two heavy ones, but they tend to fade, and then much of the south will have a dry night with clear spells, maybe some mist and fog patches. Pretty much everywhere it's going to be a mild night and a mild start to Tuesday, but quite windy across the north early on with cloud and outbreaks of rain across northern England, North Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland. The winds will steadily ease and the rain will break up to leave just a few showers really from late morning onwards. Not many of those showers though from the Midlands southwards, so most here staying dry and with the sunny spells coming through across southern England. Really quite warm again, 26, maybe 27 Celsius. Elsewhere temperatures closer to the low 20s and feeling fresher with that breeze. Although that wind will continue to ease, light winds again on Wednesday, so again maybe some mist and fog early on. A few more showers on Wednesday in the far northwest, the threat of one or two for West Wales and southwest England, but again many places will be dry on Wednesday with some sunny spells, feeling a bit warmer across northern England, and again in the south we could see 27 degrees.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can